Hello, it's Wetty Sana. Let me take these off so you can see me better. So, uh, I'm like, have my children that I'm trying to keep an eye on. So, I haven't been posting for a while, and I don't plan to post as frequently. I really think I'm going to start to be really intentional about giving myself breathing room and space to really only post when it's truly something I think should be recorded. I think I've been using a lot of social media as like a more diary format, in part because this has been such a transformational and powerful time in my children and my life in so many ways. And I know there's this saying of like the power of moving in silence, and I've believed that most of my life and functioned by that most of my life. But there was a point where I realized that my silence had actually become a disservice to me, and it took me a while to even catch up and realize that it had become a disservice. Although I spent a lot of time talking about poverty and my life as an advocate in the past few years, I can honestly say that most people, my career has not been the focal point of how I would define myself for most of my life, for whatever reason. It's a part of who I am, but it's been something that allowed me to use my gifts, but also in service to others, really. Like, I've always felt like if I was working, and that's the majority of my life I have been working, the reason wasn't simply that I felt that any role that I was doing was like necessarily always the most important thing about me. It just hasn't been, and I wonder why that is. I think in part because as a creative, when you find so much life in creating things and writing and like things that are intangible that nobody pays you to do, work is a way to enable you to do those things. Like, that is what work has been, or it's been supporting my access to go back to school. It's been making sure that I could be in grad school, and so some of the work that I've done has been everything from catering, and like, I think I'm very experiential because obviously the everything from the work that I did as a sub in Boston schools, some of my less sort of like jazzy jobs really taught me so much, and again enabled me to achieve things that are the main reason I'm sustaining now, like being in a position to not work now. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's part of preserving our health as a family, and it's such a fine hurdle to straddle, because on the one hand, I know people who are elderly or immunocompromised who really just don't leave home, who just live in so much fear about getting sick at any time. And I think that the pandemic has worked in the opposite for me, and that and maybe in just how I'm wired, that the fear and the reality that any of us could die at any time, which is always real. Having that put in focus has just made me that much more uncompromising about living my life on my terms, and being willing to sacrifice to make sure that we have the social, emotional, and spiritual, and all the things that are sort of again, the intangibles. Like we have struggled in a financial sense, but in terms of our spirit and in terms of where we are as a family, I'm happy that I had those reserves. I don't even know if I knew that I had them. I knew that I could count on myself in a crisis. A lot of people have counted on me, but I didn't realize that if shit really hit the fan as bad as it has, that I would stick as long as I have, and consistently just make it clear to so many people what our priorities are and what I've been willing to sacrifice to keep those protections in place. And for us right now, it's really, not having a thyroid, having a history of interference and other issues that have impacted us, especially around school and around work repeatedly. When I look at my son, as particular how well he's doing, this is a boy who has never had any kind of disciplinary infraction in terms of like getting in trouble for misbehaving that anybody would like call out to be anything more than like the normal range of things that kids do, right? Like being told maybe to do something more than once or whatever. But I mean, literally, despite that, I look at him being an early Head Start, a federal program, having to leave because of foolishness that had nothing to do with him, institutional level foolishness, being in Roxbury in the PEG program, again, being hit in the eye, having to leave because he was asleep when he was hit in the eye. And so that's 2 programs that he's 9, but by the time he was 5, he had had to exit 2 major federal programs. Like the institutional racism we've faced is just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling because I believe in responsibility. Like no more. Like I'm not somebody who. I'd never been on food stamps until I've been divorced in my life. Even my parents, as much as they struggled at times and took care of many other people, we were never on food stamps. So it's taken me until recently to realize that, like, I'm tried not to be. Like, I think I was Pollyanna-ish about it for a while. Like, I was like, everything will work out, and I was like, no, everything will not work out if I don't open up my mouth. If I don't open my mouth about who I am, where I come from, my background, what's at stake, why our family is any different than any other, why we're similar to so many families. If I don't open my mouth, that literally I am a part of the solution. And there's like, it's such a double-edged sword, right? Because in that silence and prayer and relying on your networks, you get sort of a more subtle and a more thoughtful source of support, because you are reaching out to people you assume that you know and assume that you trust to some degree. There's always going to be people in that mix who shouldn't be trusted, but for the most part, that's been my approach most of my life. I've never been one to be extremely public about anything that I didn't feel needed to be aired. I think symbolic of that is I was in college at Wellesley when it became clear that my dad was not going to support my finishing unless I majored in something that he chose. And I feel like there may be 3 or 4 people that I even mentioned it to. I returned to campus, and the closest people to me knew, but asking for extra, I don't know, like there was nothing I asked for in terms of my teachers or anything in terms of that transition. I literally just got back to work and started writing a weekly column that same time period. And so it's interesting, like I feel like I've been kind of put in the position of being asked to align myself one way or another. Like, okay, if you're aligning yourself with poor people, we'll make sure you suffer so you could really know what it's like. It's like, but I know what it's like. Like, part of why I've survived so long through this nightmare is because none of it surprises me. I think that the idea of Cambridge and the projects is just so oxymoronic to people that I didn't talk about it, because who's going to complain about? Why would I complain? A teenager who got scholarship to private high school and, or supplemented, my parents paid a lot too, but had a lot of opportunities, gone to great schools. There have been no reason and no situation, no work environment where I've ever felt like I needed to mention, oh, I grew up in the projects. Like, I don't know what other people do, if they do or don't talk about these things, but I never felt like it was relevant to my overall arc of a story. It was assistance we received when we needed it, because of so many reasons that weren't even clear to me at the time. And for the first few years of my life, I don't even really believe I knew that we lived in the projects, because when you're a kid, you just live wherever your parents bring you, so it never occurred to me that as a writer and somebody who has the potential to tell stories and tell other people's stories, that my years in that space would be relevant to people wanting to either silence me or feeling like there were certain things that we shouldn't talk about, like some certain taboo things. And it's interesting that that's what kind of the feedback I've gotten, because my reasons for not talking about it were much more protective. Like, I often felt like, they weren't my stories to tell, in the sense of I never felt that I needed to identify other people or, hey baby. Hi. You want to come say hi? Hi. Practicing his basketball skills. You're getting really good, huh? Yeah. Can I keep going and you'll just sit here? Or? Yeah. Okay. So, my parasol. Want to show them? It's not sunny anymore, but Mommy, can you show them me? Yes, I can. You can come over here if you want. Show them me on here. No. No, that's not happening. Come. You can be a part of it if you come. Sorry. I'm gonna focus back on what I was doing, guys. Okay. It'll be like maybe 6 more minutes. Okay. So what I was saying is I often felt like the stories were not completely mine to tell. And I don't feel that way anymore. Like, I actually feel like not only have I had so many people tell me, do it, go for it, like encourage me to go in that direction, but I feel like my ability to be an ally and to see things from different perspectives is based in that background, and I took that for granted. Like, why would I feel equally as comfortable working for Early Head Start or working in private school environments? Why would I have found roles that allowed me to be kind of the connector between those communities, bringing scholarships, kids with scholarships into private school environments, like as I had done, and even deeper, the sort of traumatic experience my own mom had of her education and having a baby being like a major disruptor, a potential disruptor. She ended up graduating, but for her, and so it's strange because my parents they didn't talk about that a lot when I was growing up. It's not like they were like ever said to me, this is, it's only because I've lived and I've seen what it means to have a child, and what it means to have a child in particular in college, and to have sorted people through that, and seen many people leave, and many people have to slow down or stop or change directions, and I know what the sacrifice had to have been, and so having a deep gratefulness to my father's extended family in particular, but also knowing the cost of what it meant to my mom to really cede control in a lot of ways to them, because her family was not here, and from what I understand, really, she did move to Virginia at a time, so it wasn't a question of that being there wasn't possible. But similar to me, I think recognizing that my family is 45 minutes away, but that I have made a decision to build independence for my family is one that I think I gained from my mother. I gained from her whatever decision she made, she and however she structured it. I mean, I'm not going to go into all the reasons, but I think the fact of, hi, Missy.
I'm going to be Cinderella.
She's going to be Cinderella in a play. She just got auditioned and got a part. So, yeah. So, being able to stand and say, Mama may have and Papa may have, but God bless the child who's got his own, is like fundamental to who I am, I think, because I understand that it's building our life, and I also know you cannot heal in the place you were hurt. I understand that, and it's not even in a like, if I go back I'd be destroyed, but like it's literally a case of like building generational strength and building an awareness and understanding of my kids as I anticipate great things to come, so many wonderful things to come for us, the humility that they'll have and the experience of being here for this time and choosing to live in joy is so essential. I've told them so many times, I've said, when you have more, and when we all have more, I want you to always remember who you were when you were here. You were the same person. Like, who were we when we had a huge house, and who are we now? We are the same people. We're the same people. And the kind of artificial and arbitrary way that we kind of slot people based upon where they live, their background, is like, it's it's really clear to me, having lived in a lot of different places, and with people from different backgrounds, that it's a lot of it's, our upbringing, but some of it's also our minds, and making a decision regardless of what happens right now to ensure that they are well connected and constantly doing art and constantly exercising, constantly focusing on keeping their focus on growth and positivity and mobility and having peace, just peace of mind, like focusing on our days and our routines around joy and to whatever degree we can serving others and being thoughtful towards one another, and those things did not change. That's all of the things that make me and make us as a family of three who we are did not change. And so, as I look to the future, I keep feeling like I'm trying to straddle a line, because I feel like it's almost been like a coming out, because a lot of people who knew me well during that time of when I grew up in Cambridge just knew me as Letty at the time, who happened to live in Cambridge, and like people who closely visited me. Like I've read so many memoirs of kids who grew up relatively either poor or struggling, who go to private school, and it's very rare for the people in the community that the students journey out to kind of have a connection to the place where that person has come from. And in my case, I felt like you couldn't possibly really know me if you didn't at that time, if you weren't also connected in that way.
All right.
So it's been interesting, because I guess it was probably unexpected by many people, or thought that I would kind of cower or feel ashamed that I would be in such a position, and yet my support for so many women, of not just women of all kinds, but particularly mothers who have had to do just what I am doing, and who have had to either leave or start over or move. This is what it is. Like, this is, and I've not even gone into great depth. But just the fact of not hiding has been huge. It's been huge for a lot of people who are connected to us. It's been huge for me to see who stays connected to us, who has disappeared in our lives, and I wouldn't take anything for that, because when things get better, I will always remember. I will always remember who stayed and who's been present for us, and I will always remember that it wasn't as if we were asking for anything. Like, we've struggled, but it's been more of a psychological and a struggle around recognizing my own mother's place in this city's history, the city of Boston, and recognizing what it had to have meant for her to stay, to have family in much better situations all around her, and to have stayed with my father in spite of having left of her own will, and having to be told that in effect, you made your bed, now lie in it, or you got pregnant in college, so therefore we have to make an example of you. And it's been interesting, because I I didn't look at it that way at all growing up until I started to talk to people and talk to her and get a better sense over the years of the distance, which I just thought we live far away. And so it's nice to kind of be in a place of acceptance, a place of recognizing that I can count on my God, I can count on me, I can count on certain people in our lives, but really we are rebuilding, and we can't report in every brick. You ready for me to be done, huh? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to my children. That's it for today. Bye-bye.